And we are live. Welcome to another episode of Up Next with your girl Kiona. I'm super, super excited to be before everyone this evening. And I have some very, 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 very special guests with me. And they are out of quarantine and they are on the screen and they're never together and they're finally here. Michelle and none other than the Honorable Brian Wimes. Good evening.
Hello.
Hello, good evening all.
How are you guys doing? Like, what's up? You guys are living?
We are living, Kiona. It's so good to see your face, and thank you so much for having us on. This is the very first time that I've done a Facebook Live interview, so I'm really excited about that. And I was like, okay, where do I look? What's going on? But I'm really excited, and I'm so happy that Brian was able to join as well. So thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Judge Wimes.
No, I was just gonna thank you as well. Yes, what have we been doing? Kind of the same thing as most people, just trying to make it through, kind of figure out how our lives are gonna go from our personal lives, our professional lives, from day to day, how we're kind of navigating this whole pandemic. And we've got all our girls home now, and I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit. So it's a little different, a lot of change has occurred in the last few weeks, 8 weeks or so.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff happening. And I think the power of social media, of course, it brings us together like this. And I must say, I really, admire you and Wifey, because you guys just do so much personally. I love how you guys are as a family. I respect that first and foremost, because that's the most important thing that I know you guys take very, very much pride in, is being great parents. And then obviously next is what you guys do professionally. And so a lot of people, they know you both are lawyers, and, the whole dynamics there, and it brings just such a great dynamic between you both. How are you guys feeling just, being out of routine, like not in the office? Like, I know you're at home, but has it been different with the girls, and what's some new things that you guys are kind of experiencing, in the house?
Yeah, it's been interesting, Kiona, to have all three of them home together. And I'm so excited about that, because honestly, I thought that it was going to be years before we would have everybody here at the same time. Sydney, our oldest, is, many of you know, is a dancer. She just graduated from college last year in May, and she had a 8-month contract on Norwegian Cruise Lines. And thank God she got home like just a week before the sheltering in place went in order, because she, had finished up her contract and got home. And so she's here, and Gabby got home from college, and she just wrapped up her junior year of college and was also doing virtual studies. And then Sage is just wrapped up her sophomore year of high school. So she also has been schooling virtually, just finished her final projects and things last week. So honestly, for me, it's been really nice having all three of them here together, and we've settled into kind of this comfortable routine. They're really involved in their sports, and so Sydney has been teaching virtual dance classes. Sage has been teaching virtual soccer classes, and
so cute.
Sydney also has a really good relationship with Miss Christie, who ran her dance studio for a number of years and still runs a dance studio. And so she's been doing a lot of the social media content for Miss Christie, just kind of keeping up with the studio and whatnot. And then Gabby's getting ready to start summer school here on Monday. So they stay busy. I mean, they're working out every day. They are, all three of them, super dedicated to their craft. So every day they're going out and working out, either at home or out in the soccer fields or whatever, hour and a half, and then coming back. And so they've kind of just settled into a routine, and we have settled into a routine as a family, I think, too, just, trying to have dinner together a couple nights a week, just trying to, watch movies and, just chill, really. Just
relax.
Yeah.
Just relax. Of course, I'm enthusiastic, and I love the fact that the girls are back home, but it's a little bit of an adjustment, because it was just me, Michelle, and Sage at the time. But I'd rather have my girls here with us, safe and doing the things they do, as opposed to somewhere else. So, like Michelle said, they've all kind of gotten into their routines. They're still working out. They're restless. I mean, especially our teenagers. our 16-year-old restless.
Yeah.
But they're managing. And I think it gives them an opportunity kind of to reconnect for the last year, when everyone's gone. So I think they're doing all their sisterly things together. They're downstairs now. And so from that aspect, you enjoy that. On a personal level, I am a bit of an adjustment to work from home. And I'd rather probably, I think I'm more efficient, more effective when I'm at the office or in chambers. But it's an adjustment, and this is going to be the new reality for a while. So I've been kind of working it. I'm a little better. I went in today because actually the court is starting to ramp back up in a way. In this sense, we are having not trials, but we're having some hearings. But we're obviously, we're doing it safely. Where the attorneys have to wear masks, those in the courtroom have to wear masks. I wear a mask. We practice social distancing. We wipe down the courthouse. But so we're trying to, at least from that perspective, the cases that must appear in person, we're trying to get those matters resolved. But I can tell you from an overall perspective of the court and the court personnel, we found through our court executive that people are being very productive at home. So we don't have to call the full personnel back into the courthouse. We can still kind of monitor the situation locally and regionally. We don't have to call them in because they are effectively working from home and they're getting the business of the court, which is the people's business, done from their home. So we're minimizing those who are in the courthouse. So that's a good thing. But I think it's just it's going to be a new way of operating for us all, and it's forever changing. Every 2 weeks something is a little different. But overall, we're managing. We feel blessed. We're in, you feel blessed too because you're in a better position than some.
For sure.
Millions who are losing their jobs, millions who are out there really struggling, and so we're just blessed in that sense.
Yeah, I think it's really cool because you guys do some fun stuff together. And recently, I was Facebook stalking Michelle, and I noticed that you got to write an article because every year the Kansas City Metropolitan Bar Association gives an annual award called the Sly James Diversity Award to a Kansas City attorney for all their contributions here in Kansas City. And this year, Michelle Wimes got it, and you wrote the article.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Right. That's neat. It was neat because it was a new experience for me. Because normally, you don't get that opportunity. And then Michelle asked. I said, yes, I would love to write an article so you can personalize it. A little bit more. So I gave a little interview of her and even a few tidbits I didn't even know about her in terms of growing up that I found out was able to include in the article. So that was fun. That was fun to do.
Yeah, is that the best part of marriage that you guys have kind of figured out, with being lawyers and having that opportunity to really kind of bridge the gap? There are the fun side of it is moments like that, and like you said, you learn things about her that you were like, I didn't know that. And then Michelle, for you, having your husband write that and you get to see him, even though you guys have been together for a while, but it's kind of refreshing because he's able to you're like, whoa, you wrote that about me? Okay. How do you guys both feel about that?
Yeah, it was so sweet, Kiona, because I didn't even know that the article was out. Because mind you, I haven't been back to work in 8 weeks. Like I have been working solidly from home, and it wasn't until Brian went into the office to his chambers because he still likes to go in periodically, even though they weren't required to go in, and the courthouse is shut down. And so he had the KC Counselor, the magazine that it came in. He said, "Oh, this was under my door. Judge Boo had this and had a note for you." And I said, "Oh, okay." And so I opened up the note, and Judge Stephen Boo had written the nicest note and said, "Here's my extra copy. Give the copy to your mom, as extra copy." So I opened it up and I read it, and Brian wasn't in the room. I was upstairs. He was downstairs somewhere. Oh my God. It was the sweetest article because of course he interviewed me, right? And I'm like, why is he asking me all these questions? Just all these random questions,
Yeah.
And just to see all of those random questions come together in such a cohesive, fluid, article, it just made me cry. It was really sweet. It really was. And I just was like, wow. Because, the funny thing is in that article, I always wanted to be a judge. And so I always thought that, I would be a judge. And my mom was like, well, you have to go to law school first. And I was like, really? I can't just be a judge? I don't want to go.
Like, oh, man.
Yeah, and so it's just really interesting because, of course, I was a cheerleader and I wanted to be a cheerleader, and now I feel like I'm cheering for justice. Kind of that is what I do, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just been it was wonderful for him to write that and to see that. It was very lovely.
That's good. And Judge Wimes, I'm going to pick on you for 1 second, and then we're going to kind of team tag with Michelle here as we go through the program. But how did it feel? We all miss President Obama, and you got the honor to just be appointed as a federal judge from him. And how did that feel? And I don't think a lot of people in Kansas City, I mean, we know you guys, we know that about you. But when Michelle sent me your bio, when you start from when you law school on down, I mean, wow, the experience is it's Black excellence all the way. And so how was that process for you personally and professionally?
It impacts you as an African American male on so many levels. Initially, even before he appointed me to the district court, I got on the circuit court in Jackson County, Missouri, as a state judge in 2007. Because of the time frame, I was immediately up for election, and we get thumbs up or thumbs down, basically. Do you approve? And so I was on the ballot. So that's 2008. Who was on the ballot but Obama? So it was neat for someone you admire, for the first African American president. He's on the top of the ballot, and then down below there's Brian Wimes for judge. So just having that, that connection, I felt, oh my God, because it was a historic moment in terms of him becoming president, and certainly when I got on the bench. So when fast forward 5 years later, when I have this opportunity to serve, and he selected me to go through the process for a district judge, it was even that more heightened. To know that you're part of the legacy of the first African American president who shared so much in common, just as a person, in some other ways too. So it was, it's just an honor to be selected during this time by the very person whom you look up to, who you respect, who you believe his vision of how things should be. And that, I'm fortunate to be a part of his legacy that leads on beyond his terms of office. And that's why it's so important in terms of, district judges, because they serve lifetime appointments. So it's very important that people recognize who they're putting in positions, because this is a part of it, the Senate process. Who basically was my sponsor, Claire McCaskill, who sponsored me to the President Obama, and the important role, obviously, of the judiciary. So it just brought up a lot of emotions on so many different levels. But I couldn't be more proud and excited to have been selected by President Obama.
Yeah, well, people are starting to tune in, and y'all, I must say, people love y'all. I got a lot of comments and stuff coming in. And Michelle, before we move on into kind of, the depth of our conversation, how does it feel for you? You watch your husband and he does what he does in the community, and to see him on that level, and, not only just here in our community, Kansas City locally, but on a national scale, that's impressive, and just not impressive from a professional standpoint, but you guys have the honor to see him every single day, and dad and husband, and, having that experience and being appointed by our first African American president. That's pretty crazy.
It is crazy. It is crazy. and I have to say, Kiona, the moment that I met Brian, Brian, we were seniors. I was a senior in college. He had taken off a year to work. We met at JCPenney, right?
Are we going there? Really going there?
Yes, we're going there, Judge.
Not at the store, but we were working at the Credit Service Center. So I was in collections, and I was calling people about their bills, and he was in customer service handling accounts. And so he worked there full time during the day, and I worked there in the evenings. I was a teacher, and so I would come in the evenings after working. And so I just remember looking at this dude. And I was like, who wears a suit to work every single day to JCPenney? Like, who takes this job that seriously, right? So I knew that there was something different about him the first time that I saw him and I was attracted to him. Lord knows I never knew that this dude would end up becoming a federal judge, right? But I do have to say that there's a certain degree of, intelligence. There's a certain degree of charisma. I like to compare him to Barack Obama, and that I think he has, and he's a swagger even to this day, And so it was wonderful. I will say it was agonizing going through the process of him becoming a federal judge because they dig so deep into your background. And so I felt like it wasn't only him that was being scrutinized. I was also being scrutinized. It was our finances. It was our, everybody that that coached him, that he went to school with, that, relationships that he had, relationships that I had. I mean, it was just crazy. And at a certain point, I was like, oh, is this worth it? Like, this is just ridiculous. And he would tell you, we would get into kind of spats about it because I was just, at a certain point, I was just like, this is just too much. It's too much. But now that we have gone past that process,
for sure,
to see how he has thrived in this position, it is what he is supposed to be doing. Like, this is what God put him on this earth to do. And he is phenomenal at his job. I mean, he is phenomenal. He takes it seriously. He loves what he does. He's passionate about what he does. And it is a joy just to see him walking in his vision and walking in his path, and his passion. So that I love, even though it was a little painful to get there.
Well, I must say, and I echo every, comment that people, say about you guys all the time is, we all are so grateful to have you here in Kansas City. And, in a time such as this, where, our stories are just so important and how we present ourselves, how we carry ourselves with excellence. I think none other than you and hubby, and Judge Wimes, you guys do a fabulous job, and you definitely are a mark for me to aim high. And I really appreciate you both. But switching gears here, I want to thank everybody for joining us right now. If you're in the broadcast, please share, bring a friend virtually. We're just now getting ready to go into the depth of our conversation with Judge Wimes and Michelle. So I wanted to open it up with you guys and kind of, talk about, obviously there is a lot happening in our country right now. And, it's kind of like, okay, let's take a breath. Let's breathe a little bit. Let's kind of recollect ourselves. At least that's how I felt yesterday and today. And so just kind of starting out, I wanted to ask you guys, you both have this career in, being a lawyer. And so when you do this, analysis of what is happening currently in our country, how does that make you feel when it comes to the law, and also just being people of color, and really, bringing forth this arena of justice and making sure that people understand why it's important?
Brian, I'll let you go.
Well, again, there's so many things that are happening now, just beyond the pandemic, just with the recent incidents in Minneapolis and in Georgia. So just as an African-American male, just an African-American, I have gone through the myriad of emotions probably in the last few days, just anger. Then there's just fear for others, strangers I don't know, who may be encountering, and just a plethora of different emotions. Exhaustion is another that comes to mind. I was on a text mail chain with some fellow fraternal brothers, and we were kind of discussing the whole issues, and everyone was expressing kind of how they felt about the recent events, and various comments, but it's just a level of an exhaustion. I thought about a book that I read, God, it must have been 20 years ago, and it just it makes you want to holler, by Nathan McCall. It was a book that was published in 1984, and it's an autobiography about just a Black man's experience in the South, the Virginia area, then Atlanta area. But, what was so striking, and I think I'm going to read that book again, is despite the fact, despite the time, despite what part of this country that you're from, there are certain things that are just common, certain feelings that you have. And so it's been just a kind of roller coaster of emotions the last couple of days. Now, how do I tie that into, you're saying, in terms of the courts? That's why I think, just looking at that issue and just broader issues, why it's so important to have whatever field it is on the bench, whether it's in private practice, that you have a workforce that reflects the community in which you serve. And certainly it means something from the bench because of the history in this country. There's a level of distrust, and I get it, and I understand that. And part of my role, I don't all the time make decisions that people are always happy with, but to see someone that looks like you, reflecting on it, it gives you that sense of, okay, I'm going to get a fair shake. It's justice and justice for all, not for a few, but that's what I want to do, whether it's black, white, or whatever you want to have from your position to convey that, hey, you come into this courtroom, you're going to have the opportunity to be heard, get a fair shake. And that's all that anyone wants. So not only is this time and everything that's going on, and then it gives you time to reflect as a person, which I've done, just about my job, what I do day to day, how can I do and be better at my job, what kind of impact can I have, because you talked about it earlier, but we're just a reflection of our ancestors. And so when you look up to us, we're people we are looking up to. And so it's, it's our obligation to make sure we give back and do the things we can to prop up that next generation who hopefully will go even greater and further than we have, or at least nothing, but to provide some sort of inspiration that, anyone truly, and this is all saying, you can do anything you want to do if you're committed to it and have the right support system around you. So that's kind of my random thoughts. I kind of went off.
No, it's fine.
But that's just the state of kind of where I'm at now.
I got a little teary-eyed, y'all. It's just one of those days, like, this is just real. Like, I know we're fine now, but I almost got teary-eyed with him saying that, they were even having to have the conversation. But go ahead, Michelle.
No, trust me, I've cried a lot in the last couple of days, and I'm struggling right now not to cry.
Yeah, me too.
It's painful. It's painful. I have wavered from fear to despair to anger to hopelessness. I do equity work for a living. I do diversity and equity work within a law firm. And I am just tired. I think so many of us are just tired. I went into law because I wanted to help disadvantaged people. I wanted to ensure that people's human rights were protected. I think that most of us, especially those of us who are brown and black, who are lawyers, we do this with a social justice bent. We do this because we see that our rights are flagrantly violated on a regular basis. And so whether we, are working in institutions within the government, whether, like my husband is on the bench, or whether it's in a private practice of law, whether it's a solo practitioner, whether you're even a prosecutor and you get to determine what gets prosecuted and what doesn't, or you're a public defender, we are all out there representing, right? Yeah. And making sure that people get a fair shake. And in my instance, it's making sure that, women and people of color and LGBTQ and differently abled people get opportunities to even come in the door, right? And then once they get in the door, what can I do? What programs, what policies, what initiatives can I put in place so that they are successful? And not just that they are being retained, so to speak, but that they're thriving in the environment, and they have opportunities to move up into leadership ranks, and they have opportunities to, to become everything that they want to be. And so to see us just, in the streets with, police officer with his knee on our neck and killing us in broad daylight, in front of
Yeah.
people, to see a woman falsely accuse a guy in a park who's bird watching, for God's sake, and to call the police and pretend as if he's threatening her. It is painful. My husband goes on a bike ride. He is an avid cyclist, and he bikes 2-3 times a week, and he's biking 20-30 miles. He goes far from home. And I told him the other day, there is not a moment that he goes out cycling that I am not worried about him, that I'm not praying for him fervently, because I'm scared that some psycho lunatic is going to see a Black man and decide that he doesn't want him to live, or a police officer is going to pull him aside, and and it's going to end in death. And so this is what we as Black people are dealing with. When my husband has to wear his badge when he goes on a bicycling trip, just in case he gets pulled over. There's been so many articles about how Black men signal that they belong, and they do it in all kinds of ways, whether it's wearing your Harvard t-shirt if you went to Harvard, like my mentor, Maurice Watson, whether it's, my husband having this badge when he's cycling, whether it's a coffee mug that you're carrying, to show that you're a member of that organization, whatever. We have to do all of these things to make people feel safe. We have to do all of these things so that people don't attack us, so that people don't kill us. And it is ridiculous. And we are tired of it. We are absolutely tired of it. So that's where I am, Kiona. And I did not anticipate crying.
Me neither.
But I am
not
still,
to cry.
Yeah, I'm still so emotional about it, because I have a brother, I have cousins, I have my husband, I have male friends. I worry about all of them. I worry that when I pick up the phone or when I see something on social media, that it's going to be one of them that's been gunned down. And what hurts the most is the silence. The silence is deafening when people don't speak up, but they don't use their privilege to say, this is not all right. Like, they will, they're up in arms about Christian Cooper and the dog that what was her name? Amy Cooper, the dog that Amy had, and how she was strangling the dog as she was calling the police, and everybody's talking about this dog. Well, what about the fact that this man could have lost his life because she's making a false accusation? So I get so tired of, we have so much of a respect for dogs' lives and for the lives of people who are not of color than we do for the people that are of color that are suffering these injustices every single day. And it is just disheartening and frustrating. And I don't know what else to say. Sometimes I'm just at a loss for words, Kiona. And this has been those couple of days where I have just been at a loss for words, to be honest.
I don't know if I have anything else to say, because we've all have said the same things, over the course of 6 years. At some point, you run out of book recommendations, you run out of, things to say, you run out of conversations, because it's really the matter of a heart issue. And we as people can't help other people recognize human dignity and decency, to treat us, like human beings. And so, when we experience things like we saw in like we're seeing in these videos, it's unfortunate. And it's sad that, you could literally be outside walking around, and for whatever reason, someone can feel compelled to call the cops on you when you're doing absolutely nothing. And, and some of us as Black people, we don't want to have to, as you said, wear, the signal, the Harvard shirt, or, you're concerned about, Judge Wimes biking, and he's gone far, far away from home. And you're like, soon when he comes back home, you're like, thank God, I
excel every time he comes back home. And it's just sad that I have to be thinking that way. I shouldn't have to think that way. I shouldn't have to have that worry.
Let me, but here's the thing, because one of those words I was saying, I was feeling all kind of things. And then what slipped into my mind is hopeless. But then I have to quickly think about that, because the one thing, I say this all the time in court, I say it to a lot of individuals, the one thing we have to have is hope. And that's one thing I learned from President Obama. You have to have hope. And so despite what's going on kind of nationally and what's been in the media, the good thing is that we have people in positions who recognize, maybe not all, but recognize what's going on. We have to give folks hope that things will get better, and that's all I have. So I've got to make sure I do my part
For sure.
in terms of who and how I treat people, how I talk to people, how we have to educate our kids and our daughters about kind of these issues that we're facing, because it'll be issues that they're facing. But I have hope we'll move forward, maybe not as quickly as we all like, but maybe not with the speed that we like. But I am convinced we're moving, not at the rate I'd necessarily like, but we're moving, and we've got to have us and then this next younger generation come up behind us to keep that hope. As they say, they keep that hope alive. That we'll get there, but it's nothing has ever been easy. Everything's always been a struggle, and so we're used to the struggle. And unfortunately, it exhausts you. You're tired, but we have to keep on keeping on.
Yeah. My next question to you guys, Michelle, and this one's for you, and then hubby can follow. Obviously the global pandemic has really stopped a lot of, in office working. And as you mentioned, you've been working from home, but with people in your situation who don't have your lived experiences might not see the urgency and why why these things are important. And so when we talk about D&I strategies and workplace, implementation around these type of conversations, if you're an executive in this space or you're a board member of some organization, in my opinion, I feel like at this point, if you don't like it and if you're not serious, you need to move out the way. And, into what should someone's mindset and you or Brian's position be in during this time? And even though we're not seeing each other, these things are happening, but at some point we all got to come to the office. How do you address that instead of just like, oh, it's not happening, or, it's not affecting me, or it's not an issue? Because we're grieving when we go to work and when we see these things, and we've been seeing it. It's been a lot of Amy's and Karen's out there, but people are just now seeing it. So what should executive leaders be thinking about, and what should they be ready to do and implement?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Kiona. And I think that they should be implementing things now, not just preparing for when we go back to a brick and mortar building. But so, for instance, there are a number of our diverse lawyers who are isolated, right? They are living in apartments. They are not married. They don't have kids, don't have pets. And we have 53 offices all around the country, right? And so I've talked to some of these folks. I think what has to happen is there have to be support systems in place to support these folks and meet them where they are and connect them to mentors, connect them to sponsors, connect them to organizations that can help meet their needs where they are right now. So we have 6 business resource groups at Ogletree. We have one for our Black attorneys, one for our Asian attorneys, our Hispanic lawyers, our LGBTQ lawyers as well, our women, and then our caregivers, people who are taking care of kids or their parents, or they're taking care of their elderly parents. And so these BRG groups, business resource groups, have been absolutely vital during this COVID pandemic, because they have been putting on webinars, they have been hosting virtual happy hours, they have been hosting virtual chats, they have been checking in on people. I think that leaders should also be checking in with practice leaders, with managers. If you're not in a law firm, if you check in with people's managers, making sure that people are getting work that continues to allow them to develop during this time. Because see, what happens is with women and minorities, we typically will fall off because we become invisible. We're already kind of on the periphery anyway. And so when you go in-house and now all of a sudden you're just working at home, you're working remote, you're not on people's radar screen. So maybe you're not getting the kind of work that allows you to continually develop. And when you go back to work, you've fallen behind everybody else. So we need to take proactive measures as leaders to be checking in with managers, to be checking in with directors, to be checking in with people to make sure that the people that they're supervising are continuing to get good work, that they're continuing to get the feedback that they need to continue to grow and develop, continuing to connect them. If you don't have people within the firm that are diverse like them, that are in leadership positions that you can connect them with, help to find them external mentors, help to connect them with external initiatives where they can feel supported and not isolated during this time. Because I think isolation is the biggest issue during this time, especially for folks who don't have a family and they're at home by themselves and they're working every day and just feeling separated. And then when you have all these other things that are happening in the community, and you happen to be African American, the despair, the depression, the anxiety, the stress can come just really quickly. The other thing that I recommend too is, we've been doing a series every week, every Friday in my firm. We call it the PDI Huddle, Professional Development and Inclusion Huddle. And we focused on things like wellness and resilience and stress reduction. We also have Mindful Wednesdays, where every Wednesday we meditate. We open it up. It's a Zoom call. We open it up to anybody in the firm. And from 1:30 to 2 CST time, you sign in, we do mindful meditation together. So again, it's stress reduction. It's, focusing on people's mental health, on their mental states, and getting people in the right mindset so that they can continue to be productive during this time. So I think there are things that can be done institutionally and structurally, and also things that can be done individually. And I think it's a both and, not an either or. So organizations and leaders need to be tackling it from both ends, from both the individual perspective and checking in on individuals, but then having programs and policies and initiatives in place, which really can support the whole.
Yeah, that's really good. Judge Wimes, do you have anything to add?
I don't. She covered it.
He's like, you go, girl. You go, girl.
Yeah, and it's always a little different in the public sector. I will tell you as a whole, in terms of the programming that we get as federal judges on a national level, I think they do a pretty good job. I think we're always have to be cognizant of the fact that we need, as I mentioned before, diverse workforce, not only the judges, but also with the court personnel, those who are allowing us to do the job that we do. And I think we do a pretty good job, more in particular to the Western District, recently. And I think everyone is on board of that. And we've had the opportunity to select magistrates recently. And I think all of the judges are very cognizant of diversity, not only in race, not only in gender, but in backgrounds and in other areas. And so I'm happy to be on a bench now where the judges think about that and are very cognitive of that and really try to kind of move forward in that diversity and inclusion, especially in terms of those on the bench. But I think we're moving that way in terms of making sure our workforce, those court personnel who are so vital to what we do, again, we need to reflect the community in which we serve. And so that's what we strive to do.
Yeah, it's really good. What I hear both of you saying is proactiveness, urgency. And Michelle, piggybacking off of you, someone mentioned it in the comments too, you're out of sight, out of mind, because their concern is if you lose that professional ground, then you're not physically at the table. And so, you're out, like you said, you're out of sight, out of mind. And before you know it, you look up, not only are you behind, work wise, just your professional development, you're behind.
Exactly. Yeah. We've done webinars for our associates on staying visible and staying valuable, right? And it's just little practical, tactical things that they can do to check in and say, hey, I'm here, and so we've given them strategies for that so that they're not out of sight and out of mind, because that's absolutely right. That's the dilemma, especially with women and minorities, that we will fall off the radar. And we just cannot have that. We've got to continue to develop. And the other thing I would say too is, so the onus is also on us as people of color and women to be responsible for our own career development and own our own careers. So for instance, if I'm not getting work and I don't have billable hours, if I'm in a law firm, then I can be doing all kinds of continuing legal education. I can be writing blogs. I can be participating in podcasts. I can be writing articles on LinkedIn. I can be doing research and supporting white papers that our shareholders or partners are writing. So there's all kinds of ways to add value. And so you can be focused on your own career, creating your own brand, creating your own a name for yourself in the process of learning learning and growing and developing. So I want to encourage people, take ownership of your career. And even if you're not getting the work, do what you can where you're at to focus on how you can improve yourself in the process when there is this lag time.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
We got work to do, as Stephanie would say. We're going to have them on later at 8:30.
I know. I saw that. I'm excited. I can't wait to hear Nicole and Stephanie.
Yeah, I heard their words, and just hearing you and Judge Wimes is just so, it's just a lot, and I just feel like in our workspaces, these are things that we just continually have to work on and have to take ownership of. And like you say, a lot of it is on us to be proactive and put ourselves in situations where we can grow also. But hopefully, executive leaders overall really understand the importance of why these things matter and what they should be doing. Judge Wimes, I have a question for you, going back to just the process of law and implementation of timing and being aggressive, but also, like you said, having that mindset and really thinking about, diversity and equity. Do you feel now in current society with things that we're seeing today, we are slow, and like you said, I know who we elect is important, but the process of, moving slow when clearly it's like, well, they lost their job, but we know as people there should be greater measures amongst just losing payments that should be handled. What are your thoughts on that?
So you're saying in terms of, in terms of like in the court, are you saying generally? Well,
just process. So, when we see like an hour or like a day or 3 days go by and it's like, okay, they finally lost their job. And it's like, well, they should be prosecuted, why does it take so long for due process to occur when we know good and well that we just need to just get right to it,
Oh, okay. Well, I see it that, they say justice delayed is justice denied, but here's what, and I'm going to go around the world to get next door to answer your question.
Okay.
But here's why it is just critical. And Michelle brought it earlier that we have individuals in these positions. It doesn't mean you have to be Black, but have a sensitivity to the issues that are going on. We need to because it's a people's game. And if we don't have the people in there who are going to see a situation, and these are people who can make decisions. Example, whether it's prosecutorial decisions, whether it's someone on the bench, the decisions they make, whether who to prosecute, who not to prosecute, whether it's the police chief and their beliefs in terms of how we train individuals in certain communities. It's a people's game. And that's what drives everything. Any organization, it's a people's game, and you have to create that culture. You have to create it, whether it's in the federal court system, whether it's in the prosecutor's office. You have to, and people have to buy into that. And if you're consistently and ongoingly on the short end of that stick, then you don't have faith in the very institutions that you need to or you should have faith in, because then there's the belief that they don't work for you. And I think that's far too many Americans feel that way. Those who have been brown and Black people who have been disenfranchised. So that's why it's so critical. And I see it just from my end, because I'm in public service, that why it's so critical that we have to exercise our rights,
to vote.
Right to vote.
I'm going to talk about that.
Important. That is so important. And I'll say this real quick, because the end game for me growing up, and I grew up fortunate in a family where, my dad wasn't on the front line, but very active in what was going on in the community. So I learned very early. I knew I wanted to serve the public. I never thought I'd serve it in this capacity as a judge, because I see that as the basis, that as the means of progress, of moving forward. You look at anything that's occurred in this country as it relates to people, the civil rights movement, it has been legislatively, and it's been through the political will that we've been able to advance, and we have to continue that.
Yeah. You said something so important, because we was packing out the Popeyes chicken line. Let's talk about our people for 1 second, Michelle. Brian, Honorable Judge, did you go get the Popeyes chicken sandwich?
I did not. Actually.
Neither did I. I never made it.
Well, look here. But we packed it out and we can't even get us to turn up to vote. I'm gonna need us to keep that same energy.
That's right. That's right. Well, you know, there was a young man, remember?
Oh,
and I
yeah.
don't remember what city he was in that where he actually was
registering people
while they were in line at Popeyes, which I was like, go ahead, young man. That's exactly what we need to do. We need to capture people where they are.
Exactly.
But yeah,
meet them where they are.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. We need to have more activism, and we need to take seriously our right to vote, because our ancestors died for that, and when we don't turn out to vote, we are basically just handing it over to the other side, and we cannot do that. We've got to vote, even if we don't like the Democratic candidate. I mean, it's better than the opposite. I mean, you know,
well,
it's better.
Now, see, I'm gonna have to differ now. Yeah, and I agree. And I will say this, but it's important to vote, and don't be apathetic. And you know, we're not always getting everything we want in every candidate that we have.
That's true.
But we want to have a say so in whatever candidate we want. The quality of those who not only look at the interests of your interests, your community, but look at the interests as a whole, because no one, whether you're African American, white, Asian American, Hispanic American, you can't operate alone by yourself. So yes, you want someone who's going to look out for the interests of your group, but you want someone who's going to look for the interests ultimately of everyone, because that's how you know, my mother used to say, a rising tide lifts all boats, you know, and that's what we need, that type of leadership, that type of inspiration, where everyone's has the opportunity to kind of live what we call this American dream, which some don't have the opportunity to do. So I think you just have to exercise, and that is the most the basic but fragile but so important right that we have.
Yeah. Michelle, how are things going for you? You know, how during the global pandemic, you know, your role, like you said, is more hands-on. You know, you're always in the office, you're talking to your coworkers and people that you manage and oversee. Mm-hmm. So now being at home and working in those confines and other people at their homes, how are you guys, you know, shifting, and how's your position shifting during this time?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we have not missed a beat, to be honest. We have not missed a beat. We, you know, I meet with my team once a week via Zoom, Skype for Business. So we see each other. We just had our weekly meeting this morning. And then we're checking in with each other regularly, you know, via email. My executive coach is Nicole Price, right? And so Nicole, who I love, who I know is coming on at 8:30 today. Nicole recommended, you know, because here's the deal. I was a little frustrated when this pandemic first started, because I felt like my law firm was missing the mark. I felt like there was a lot of communication about the logistics of COVID-19 and what needed to happen to technically get people the IT support that they needed, to get people the administrative support that they needed, so that they could logistically work from home. But there was no discussion around the anxiety, the stress, you know, of trying to homeschool kids while you're also trying to work during the middle of this crisis. And so there was really no discussion around those things that are really what, you know, in a law firm people call the soft topics, right? And so just in the course of talking to Nicole, she was like, look, but that's what your specialty is. This is a time for you to shine. This is a time for your department to shine, to develop programming and initiatives that address and fill in that gap. And so that's exactly what we did. And that's how we came up. I came up with these weekly PDI huddles, and we've had, you know, 200 people, 300 people, 100 people signing into these webinars, right? And it's been fabulous because it supports people. It meets them where they are. We talk about resilience. We talk about a growth mindset. We talk about, you know, how do you navigate stress? How is your team going to come out of COVID-19 stronger than you are today? And what are the characteristics of a resilient team? You know, and what does that mean? And so we give them the tools and the resources to not only be successful during this pandemic, but then also afterwards when we need to emerge from it as a cohesive team. So we haven't missed a beat. I mean, it has been wonderful. The feedback that we've gotten has been great. And then not to mention, I've been partnering with our clients. I mean, we represent Fortune 50, Fortune 100 companies all around the world. And so I've had clients who have reached out to me and have said, will you do programming for us? Will you put on a CLE for us? For instance, Missouri has a new continuing legal education requirement that every lawyer needs to have 1 hour of unconscious bias, implicit bias training as part of their 15 hours of credit every year. And so now you have a lot of law firms and lawyers who are scrambling to get their implicit bias cultural competency credit hour, right? So now I'm partnering with clients to train on cultural competency and implicit bias and what is it that meets that requirement. And it's wonderful because people are now having to think about this where they never really had to think about it before. But now that it's a requirement and you can't renew your license if you don't have this, this training. It's
all over it.
I'm all over it. So I've been partnering with clients. We're getting ready to do one for Anheuser-Busch in St. Louis in a couple of weeks. I'm getting ready to do one for Hallmark as well. And so it's been that has been refreshing, being able to partner with our clients. And I did a webinar with the Association of Corporate Counsel, which is lawyers who work in corporations all around the world, and talking to them about engagement and retention strategies during COVID, and specifically talking to them about inclusive leadership and what are the characteristics of being an inclusive leader. Even virtually, there are things that leaders should be doing to signal that diversity, equity, and inclusion are top of mind and are important, and they don't want to lose people during this pandemic. They want to keep people engaged. And so it's the way we communicate with people. It's the way that we set up these virtual meetings. It's the way that we keep transparency top of mind, and we make sure that we're communicating and sharing with people what the information that we can share with them, but doing it in a sensitive way that recognizes the challenges that they're currently facing.
It's really good. Judge Wimes, what do you think is this next pivot? What's the next, in that light of everything that's going on, what's next? We got equity on the table. We got laws being passed and things coming up. We got voting coming up. I mean, what's up, Judge?
It's going to be interesting. I tell you, this pandemic has been a game changer in so many ways. It has caused us to evaluate and look at how we do things. There's everyone that says, I hope we get back to normal. Well, it's not going to be normal as we know it. It's going to be a new normal. And I think in a good way, in some ways. I think the court has learned how we have to operate differently. And so I think, there's just a lot going on. But, what this pandemic has done for me, and I'm going to kind of pivot a little bit on this, is it has given me the opportunity to reflect more kind of on me and what I'm doing. It gives me a chance to slow down. Sometimes, you're at home and you're like, you want to get out, but it gives you a chance to slow down because we get into our daily routine, our daily lives, we do it, and it's just like Groundhog Day. Every day, same thing every day. And this has given me, and it gives us the opportunity to reflect professionally, personally, and where we're at. And so I've utilized this time as a time for me to kind of try and find ways where I can grow personally, things that I can do, not only professionally, a little differently, but also personally to help me grow. We never stop learning. I may be at the ultimate spot that I wanted to be in terms of professionally being a federal judge, but we always learn, we always improve, we always grow. And so this has given me the opportunity to kind of sit back and kind of reevaluate some goals, make some short-term goals, some things I want to do. So people, and it's tough though, because not only do you have that, but you have these other things just weighing on your mind and just the stress, the anxiety associated with, like I say, Michelle and I, we've been blessed in a sense in terms of, more security in terms of our job security where others. So it's just tough, and you hate to see that situation for others. When you have such a given heart, you just want to help. And so that's kind of where I'm at, where it's going. I mean, big things, voting coming up, there'll be some changes. We'll see.
That's some good stuff. Michelle, I have like a off the wall, like this has nothing to do with anything. I just think people need to know. But time flies when we're having fun. And it's already like almost been an hour already. So,
oh my God. Wow.
I know. I know. Like we ought to do this again. I think people would like to see this part too. I don't know when, but we'll figure it out. Cause I mean, you go back and watch this, people are really responding well. Michelle, I think a lot of people, and these are my thoughts, so I'm not putting words in your mouth, but we see just so much divisiveness in our own communities, like, just relationship driven. But when we talk about other people as well, like letting down the guard, and just really kind of just woosah and really build true, authentic relationships, and the importance of that, and how we see now it's more important than ever. I mean, we were talking about, I miss you, like I ain't seen you in months.
Right.
So just like, what are your thoughts on, if you need to deal with something, go deal with it. If you need to forgive somebody, forgive somebody. If you need to call somebody, call somebody. If you got a problem, you need to figure it out. Life is too short. It's too short.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly. And what brought that home for me, Kiona, was when I saw the front page of the New York Times this past weekend, and
with all the names.
All of the names, the 1,000 people. It was just 1%, 2% of the deaths that they've had, and that's when it brought home to me that this is real. Like, people are out here dying in these streets. There is no time. There is no time for petty grudges.
Judge, you said they died out here in these streets.
If it's not racism that's killing us, it's COVID-19. Okay, people are dying in these streets. And so we don't have time for petty things. We just don't. So if I have a beef with you, you got your bonds. I'm gonna tell you that I got a beef with you. If I got a problem, it is now. Now is the time to solve all that ish. Now is the time. And we have to build relationships. We got to build solid relationships. And so
I'm crying. Of course I'm crying laughing. Of course over here like just cracking up. Because I just feel like
true. It's true. I mean, life is too short. And I think, like Judge Wimes said, this has been a time for me for personal reflection and growth as well. Same. And, I've been journaling a lot, and I have made myself, I've said, I'm going to make a point every single day to do one act of kindness. And I don't care whether that's reaching out to somebody and telling them how much they mean to me, whether it's actually looking my spouse in the eyes and giving him a kiss when he gets home, whether it's telling my girls how much they mean to me, whatever it is, sending a thank you note to somebody, sending a graduation card and gift, sending a birthday card. Every day, I want to do one act of kindness, because I feel like there is such a lack of that right now, of what I'm experiencing in this world, and the lack of humanity that I've seen that we as Black people and people of color are being treated like. And so I feel like if I want some of that reciprocated back to me, I've got to put that out in the universe, because I'm a strong believer in the law of attraction. I'm a strong believer in karma. I'm a strong believer in you get what you put. You get back what you put out. Right?
So if you cuss somebody out, somebody gonna cuss you out.
That is true. If I probably deserve to be cussed out soon. I probably did something I deserve to be cussed out. But I think, Kiona, too, as I got over 50, like once I turned 50, it's like no holds barred. I was like, you know what? I'm going to say what's on my mind. And I don't care. And it's not that I'm not going to be tactful. I'm going to be tactful. But the time for tiptoeing around people, whether it's your spouse, whether it's your children, whether it's your people at work,
it's over. It's done.
Over. It's over. I'm not tiptoeing around anybody, because I am living in my authenticity, and I am living in my shoes.
Judge got something to say.
Well, what she's trying to say is this: we old, just like our parents. How your parents get to that age, they just say whatever. All kids identified us as being old folks, and we just say, "Hey, we gonna say what we got to say."
Yes, I love this. Michelle, I echo everything you said. as a, I look up to you guys, both of you guys. I've already told you that. Love you guys to death. There's so many people in our community that are doing great things, but when you look at now, just a lot of things that are being exposed, with people. And we know a lot of the testimonials, superintendents and reporters who have lost their jobs because they're fighting for the very thing that we've seen nationally on TV. So, I don't know. I just want people to understand that this is why we just need to treat people with kindness. This is why we need to support people, not saying you need to not do your homework, but we need to do everything we can to support people and leaders and people of color who are really about true change, and they have the 20 years plus experience or, lived experience to do it. So I think you guys are a testament of that for sure.
Well, Kiona, let me tell you, I feel like I've made it now. You have been my COVID-19 because I'm on Kiona Speaks Your Show. So,
man, no.
I'm it now.
No.
Sometimes you feel old and outdated, but I'm on your show. So now I feel like I've made it. I have made it.
Look,
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome, Juris. I really appreciate you and Michelle coming on. I know tonight, thank you guys so much for tuning in. A lot of people are saying we need to do this again. I don't know. We'll talk about that at another time. But tonight's a double play. So for those of you who are on right now, if you want another dose of equity and inclusion and diversity and just having a true conversation, we're back here at 8:30. So with Dr. Nicole Price.
Dr. Nicole Price.
and Stephanie Smith, none other than so she's amazing in her own right as well. So we're back here. Any last parting thoughts from you both before we jump off here?
My last thought is, for the last 2 days, white allies, friends of mine, have been asking, what can I do? What can I do? I'm seeing all these injustices. They're just as upset as we are. And my thing is, start where you are, build relationships where you are, educate yourself. Don't depend on Black people to mentor you and to tell you, what's wrong. Read and educate yourself. Start where you are and do something. Pick up the phone and call the Minnesota District of Attorney. Call Michael Freeman at 612-348-5550, whoever put that in the comments, so that those officers can be arrested, regarding George Floyd. Pick something practical that you can do in your sphere of influence, in your locus of control, and do it.
Yeah, it starts right there on the screen, right there. That's the first. Everybody's, what can I do? That's what you can do. It's busy because I tried calling earlier today, but just make the phone call and let them know, because we got work to do. We got stuff to do. We got
work to do. But
Judge Wimes,
everybody can do. Everybody.
Yeah, everybody.
I don't know what more I could add to that. I just echo that, and we just got to keep, like I said earlier, we got to keep on keeping on, because if we're not the ones that keeping hope and those things alive, then who's going to do it? So I echo everything that Michelle said, everything you have said, Kiona. I'm just so happy to be a part of this program, part of this dialogue, because I think that's what we need, especially in this time as folks feel more isolated. We're going to have to rely on each other and those of us to keep us connected and keep us moving in a positive and right direction. So thank you again.
Well, you heard it here, folks, on Up Next. Tune in at 8:30. I'll be right back with Dr. Nicole Price, Stephanie Smith, right back here. You got it. Love y'all. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.